And good evening, everybody. Welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports, another edition tonight. Joining me, by the way, I'm David Burnett. Joining me is Bobby Special K. Kinzer, Larry Abels, and Chuck Snowden. Gentlemen, how are you?
We're great. I'm great.
You're marvelous.
Great. Always love to be with you guys. Let's do this.
I'm telling you, I'm happier than the nearsighted gynecologist.
Okay.
Hey, Larry, David looks like Earl Monroe tonight, doesn't he?
Pearl. You're right.
Earl the Pearl. He's like Earl the Pearl tonight with his he look a little bit of Earl the Pearl tonight.
I wish I could play like Earl Monroe, but my game wasn't like that. But I could jump and I could block your shot, Bobby. I just want you to know that. Anyway, we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs.
You look like James Earl Jones now, man.
Oh, Lord. It's going to be a show, folks. It's going to be a show. Let me start with the NBA playoffs. And we've got a lot to talk about with the NBA playoffs. And we're going to start with the NBA playoffs best team, the Denver Nuggets, knocking off in sweeping fashion the Los Angeles Lakers. And let's start with you, Bobby. You are a professional basketball player. You spent time playing basketball overseas. You know the game very well. What did you think of the Denver sweep of the Lakers?
Actually, David, and I think I told you all this early on, I thought they were going to lose to the Memphis Grizzlies. But what shocked me was how they started playing so well together. But their biggest problem, they have nobody that could shoot the ball, man, even LeBron. And I think it came back to haunt them. They just didn't have enough, man. So, like I said, they had over expectations, man. They over exceeded what I thought they were going to be able to do because they were playing pretty good there through the playoffs to get to the Western Championship.
To get to that point.
Yeah.
To get to that point. Let me go to the spiritual leader of the Lakers, Mr. Chuck Snowden. And Chuck, what happened to your Lakers? And we're going to spend some time eventually to talk about Denver. But of course, since it's the Lakers world, we got to start with the Lakers. What happened?
First of all, I have been humbled a little bit. So I'm going to try to take, a humble approach to my responses this evening because you're right. Denver is the champs. The games were close. The games were close. They just LA just could not close the games. So my 2 cents is this: every night or every game, there was somebody from Denver who played really well, and we didn't have a response to it. Be it KCP, one night it was Brown and Porter. The last night, the other was Aaron Gordon. But the games were closer than I think a lot of people, even though they got swept, I think the games were a lot closer than a lot of people anticipated.
Let me ask you, Larry, what did you see in terms of the Lakers and Denver? And again, we haven't talked much yet about Denver, but let me ask you about Denver particularly and Nikola Jokic. Have we finally put to bed any concerns about his play? He's so far, in my estimation, the playoffs MVP. Larry?
I don't know why anyone would have any concerns about Joker's play.
David just makes that stuff up every week.
He was player of the year the last 2 years, and he's right up
runner up this year.
Yeah, but I do want to comment on the Lakers. I want to say that I think the Lakers played very well. I thought they played as well as they could play. They just faced a better team. And I know we'll talk about the other series later, but I'll have to say the Lakers gave me my money's worth every night. I thought the coach did a good job, a rookie coach.
They have no shooters, Larry.
Huh?
They have no shooters.
I think they played a good game. All of those games were very competitive, and it just looked like the best team won to me. That's what it looked like. And it doesn't seem like they're 4-0 better than them, but, they were better than them. They were clearly better. I have no problem with that. I think LeBron played well every night, 38 years old. I keep telling people I wish he could have got maybe a little more rest at certain times, but they needed him out there.
They wore him out, Larry. They wore him out.
Okay, so let me tell you who shot well. I thought Reeves shot well, and I thought Hachimura, and I think Hachimura shot well.
How much
in most games? LeBron and Davis played decent. I mean, better team just beat them.
The better team won. Let's talk about the co-star of the Denver Nuggets, Jamal Murray. He really lit up the Lakers in several games. Is he underrated? Is he properly rated? Are we looking at him properly? Let's stick with you, Larry.
Well, I think, I think people that have followed it closely have seen that in him. I think when they were in the finals a few years ago or in the playoffs down in the bubble or something
Utah.
like that. Yeah.
It's Utah. He played really well.
He's been injured. I mean, and I think that hurt Denver last year for that matter. And getting him and Porter back, they've had a lot going. His average is probably I think he only averaged about 20 during the season. Because when I watched him during the season, I didn't know who had the bigger impact, him or Porter. But he clearly has stepped up in the playoffs. He's probably averaging about 28 points a game in the playoffs. He's very good.
Chuck.
So I agree mostly with everything that Larry said. And only thing I would say about Murray and the coaching, even though Darvin Ham, I'm not going to pick on him too much, but Dill played entirely too much in that series. They should have pulled the plug on him long ago and put Schroeder on Murray, because Schroeder could slow him down a little bit. He just went too long on D'Angelo. And not only was D'Angelo not scoring, he just doesn't rebound, doesn't defend, doesn't do anything. And so I thought that was a strategic move there. I thought they should have gone with somebody besides D'Angelo.
But he ultimately made that move, didn't he, Chuck? Didn't he ultimately make that move?
He did. And in fact, that last game was one of the closest.
Let me tell you the move that he really made that was serious.
Go ahead, Bob.
Really made that he was serious. When LeBron was on Murray, he locked him up, by the way. I don't know if y'all know, in those last few minutes, I was a little bit disappointed in Murray because LeBron locked him up. And then LeBron locked up, he was on Joker too, remember? And he locked him up. But Dave, if I can, address your question, definitely underrated. Murray's underrated, right? And his shooting percentage, forget his points, even his shooting percentage was like phenomenal. But he let me down in those last few minutes when LeBron locked him up, and he kind of let me down. He didn't give me the superstar feeling because he couldn't score. And I'm like, come on, this is going to shut this down if Murray just hit. And they were locking him up. He was causing turnovers and got his shot blocked. But he's underrated. I think he's underrated.
Let me ask you guys this.
The fourth game,
let me ask you guys this, and we're still talking about the Nuggets and Lakers. Are the Nuggets just a bad matchup for the Lakers, and are we underrating really the power of the Nuggets, not giving them enough credit because they aren't the profile team of the NBA? Go ahead, Chuck.
No, I don't think we underestimated them. I will say, though, under the bright lights, KCP, Porter, Brown, and of course Murray was just absolutely sensational. They didn't wilt under the bright lights. And it's interesting, that last game, I know this is so silly of me, but that last game, I thought that game came down to one shot. That shot that Joker made when the ball behind his head on the bad foot falling out from the three-point line that put them up 3 after the Lakers had tied it up. Boy, that was a big shot. It just seemed like Denver, every time, LA couldn't stop them. LA couldn't get a stop when they had to. And so I have to credit the other guys in terms of plays that they made down the stretch. And it was tough to watch.
Larry, is Denver just a better team?
Yes, that's what I said. I'll even tell you, in games 3 and 4, I thought the Lakers benefited from some of the fouls that they were calling on Denver. And Denver got in foul trouble and really couldn't guard them part of the time, but they still were scoring enough to stay closely. Because a lot of times, I think second period in game 3 and third period in game 4, you could see Denver's players backing off, and LeBron was going to the hoop, scoring, but they were scoring down the other end, and they just couldn't stop them. Bob, what I give Los Angeles credit by putting so many different looks on Murray toward the end. That's what slowed him down, and he was probably tired.
And he was tired, but and that's why LeBron was tired, man. That's why he wasn't as effective in that second half. He was worn out, man. That guy was playing minutes, checking this person. But the other thing, to credit Larry, early on in the series, they had Davis on the Joker, right? Which was a smart move by Denver because they were doing that pick and roll, and that pulled Davis from out the middle, which people didn't realize. But they had to take him off because he couldn't. Remember, they tried to put Jacques Moore on him.
They figured that out late in the first game. That's why that game got close.
So they did a lot of different things. But David, I think Denver is underrated, and I believe the Lakers were overrated.
No,
I think Lakers were overrated. They shot they won. They couldn't get no more out of them. They did what they did was phenomenal, but that was it. They couldn't get no more out of them.
I thought another thing you talked about.
Go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead.
We were talking about how LeBron was tired, and I understand what you're saying. He only played all 48 minutes, but I also thought another strategic play move that was bad is in the game before that. So that would have been game 3. The score was 94-93 with 6.5 minutes to go, and Ham took LeBron out the game to get a blow. They never recovered. He could rest the next day. That game 3 was so important that if you're going to play him 48 minutes, you should have played him that night. That was the night they needed to win.
Hey, Chuck, but you know for a fact what LeBron means to that team. That's really the most they had. And so if he pulled him out the game, trust me, he didn't pull him out because he was trying to be some fantastic coach. LeBron was tired, man. He's been playing a bunch of minutes, and he's 38 years old.
I worry about that the next day.
Chuck, they needed to sit him. He probably should have set him before that because you can see once he stops driving to the hole, he started just relying on jumper after jumper after jumper. And one game he was hitting, but that's what I knew he was tired. When he had any type of energy, he was taking them to the hole, and they could not stop him.
Gentlemen, I got a couple of questions to ask about LeBron, but I'm going to hold that for about 3 minutes because we need to talk about the ongoing current playoff MVP, Nikola Jokic.
Exactly 3 minutes?
Exactly 3 minutes. And I got a clock, Bobby. What have we learned about Nikola Jokic? 2-time MVP. I think there was a little bit of pushback about him becoming MVP again this year for 3 straight. But what have we learned new about this player? Or have we? And I'll start with you, Chuck.
So he was unbelievable. And I don't think he did anything that I didn't know that he couldn't do. He was a great passer. He's got a high basketball IQ. But I wouldn't put him up there with the legendary centers from the past because he can't check nobody. He can't stop nobody, man. He's one of those European new breed center 5.0 that can pass and plays out on the floor, can dribble a little bit. But if Shaq or Will Chamberlain or Hakeem was posting him up, they would eat. And that's why I was again disappointed the Lakers didn't go down in the hole and force him to come down there and take him down there. But offensively, in terms of skill set, he's pretty unique.
Okay.
But I wouldn't put him in the all-time. I'm not ready to anoint him.
Well, okay.
Like some of the other people were talking. After that
I wouldn't rate him against Wilt Chamberlain either, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, who else? Who's going to rate against him anyway?
Go ahead, Larry.
You're going to rate many people against Wilt Chamberlain. That's the thing.
Yes, you would. Hold on, Larry. You would rate Chamberlain and Shaq and Hakeem Olajuwon and Ewing, and you can go down the list, and people would rate him. Russell.
That's only 4 people.
Well, I just think Wilt's the greatest. I think Wilt's the greatest. That's why I said that. But no.
I do too, Larry.
I do too.
Guy can definitely play. I mean, it's I haven't learned anything about him. He doesn't give weak side help. Now he's pretty good defensive rebounder. If I had to say one thing he doesn't do weak side help. And I think that's what when Bob was talking about putting Hachimura on Davis, that took away. That to me, that was a good coaching move because he was getting assists. They were making layups. Once they made that switch and Anthony Davis was down there, he got like, I think game one he had 12 assists in the first quarter, and then it's, it kind of, he still gets his double digits, but he was on pace to get like 40 assists that game, and they made some nice changes. Davis plays good weak side defense, but Davis couldn't guard him one-on-one either. But I don't know if anybody can.
Bobby, your thoughts on Nikola Jokic?
What I learned about Jokic, he's the truth. Now, Chuck said all he could do was, shoot the ball and pass the ball and rebound. What more does he just don't play no D. Look, you're right, Chuck. He would not be able to stop Shaq, Akeem. But you know what? They wouldn't be able to stop him either. He and notice when they put and how you say is it Nakamoto, the Japanese brother, the black Japanese
Hachimari.
Hachimari. You notice they had to take him off from two after a while because he couldn't stop him. He may stop him from assists, but he couldn't stop him from scoring. The Joker is the truth, man, and he's proven it. And Chuck, I don't know if you saw statistically that he broke the record for
triple doubles.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody can do triple doubles.
Yeah, he's got a unique skill set. He averaged what, 23? He averaged what, 24 points, 25 points in the series?
Yeah, 14 rebounds.
Murray averaged 33. 33. There were two games in this series where Joker in the fourth quarter didn't score.
You sound like some GOP. You pick one thing. He was killing them.
No, I'm just saying. Everybody's talking about him like he's already legendary. Put him on Mount Rushmore, and I'm not ready to do that.
He can't fit on Mount Rushmore now. Come
on. Well, all I will say here before we get to one last thing on the Western Conference playoff is that Nikola Jokic is a great player. He's the MVP so far in the playoffs. And I think we all agree on that.
It's funny because I think we've changed that every week. First, we might have thought it was Devin Booker. We might have thought it was Fox. But he's the last one standing that's still playing that.
He's the last one standing.
Quick trivia.
Yes, sir.
How many out of the last 25 number one picks? Last 25-year number one picks, how many of them became an MVP in a playoff series? How many people would you say? Of the number one picks, not first round pick, out of the 25 number one picks, how many of them do you think became an MVP of a playoff?
Hakeem
Iverson.
Olajuwon.
I hope y'all are only one person.
Are we going back more than 25 years?
Just 25 years. I'm talking about the last
25 years. Okay.
Yeah.
LeBron and Iverson.
No, it wasn't. He didn't win. No, he didn't win the MVP. Iverson was the MVP of the playoffs. So I'm just saying. So Joker might be the MVP of these playoffs.
By the way, Nikola Jokic was a second round pick. Second round in the NBA guarantees you nothing.
And check this out. How many out of the last 25 number one picks, that's 25 years, how many of them became MVP of the league? This is showing you how serious Jokovic is. How many people you think? You don't even have the name. How many people became
number one pick? How many?
Only two. LeBron and Rose.
Derrick Rose.
The number one picks, 25, last 25. Did that. So I'm putting in perspective Jokovic and being an MVP of the league and possibly MVP of the playoffs.
All right.
That's all I was doing.
And you did a good job there.
So, hey, David, you're the historian of this group normally. So where would you, I know how you feel about Joker, where would you put Joker historically? Would he already, in your opinion, be in your top 15 or top 20 or top 10?
He's in the top 20 right now. Absolutely. He's in the top 20. There have been only a handful of players that have won multiple MVPs. He's one of them. And that puts him in the top 20. But Kareem had, 6? Bill Russell had 5. Mm-hmm. Chamberlain had 4. Olajuwon, I think, had 2. So there are a lot of players who are very great. Many of them are centers. So we'll leave it at that. Before we move off the West Coast, let me ask about the comment LeBron James made at the end of the series against Denver. He suggested he might be considering retirement. And I'm going to start with you, Chuck. Your thoughts on a possible LeBron retirement?
LeBron James will be in uniform next year without question. Two things. A, and I know that he doesn't say anything without thinking through it. I think he might have been sending a message to the front office in terms of, if everyone at this panel is right, that LA didn't have enough, that he wants the front office to go fix that, and using that maybe as leverage. I don't think there's any way LeBron's not going to be in uniform next year. I really don't.
Let me ask you real quickly before I move on to Larry and to Bobby.
The doctor.
The doctor. How many more years do you expect him to play? Just 2 more?
At a minimum, 2 more.
At most.
Okay. All right, Larry.
At most.
Is LeBron serious?
I didn't take him serious at all. I thought he just said, I got to think about it. They caught him out of time right after a game, right after a loss, and he was very graceful in his interview. He just said, I got to think about it. I would be shocked if he's not there at least next year. He has too much. I think a lot of people want to leave on their terms before they just stumble. Like, I hate to use this analogy, but I'll use like Willie Mays at the end of his career. LeBron came out, what did he get, 40 the other night? I mean,
he still can play.
Yeah.
He
30
can
at the
still
half.
play.
Yeah.
He can still play. He's not as good as he used to be, but so what?
Neither are you.
He's still great. He's still at a great level.
Oh, yeah.
He's still at a great level.
He's not at that level where we're saying, maybe you should hang it up.
I'll never forget the great line at Muhammad Ali, Howard Cosell. Well, champ, you're not the man you used to be.
And neither are you, Howard.
Quickly responded with, I talked to your wife, Howard, and guess what? You aren't either.
She told me.
And then he Bobby his payoff.
Bobby, finish this out on LeBron.
Okay. Charles Barkley kind of said that he was upset because LeBron made that remark and it took all focus was on LeBron. Everybody was talking about it, didn't talk about Denver, how they swept them, how good they played. It was all about LeBron retirement, And I feel that he took a lot of that, and that's how LeBron is too sometimes. But this is the thing, you all. Especially professional basketball player, I had to deal with it. We call it holding on the ghost of Naismith. Most guys end up staying too long. They overplay, like Kareem, Patrick Ewing. When I saw Patrick Ewing, when he was still playing, he was running down the court, he was hurting my knees the way he was running down the court. I'm like, Pat, give it up. But it's hard, you all. It's hard because I'm telling you, and Jordan, the same thing, right? Same thing with Jordan. It wasn't just that he was trying to help some Wizards. No. To hear that scream, man, when you dunk on somebody, and it's 20,000 people to understand, man, it's hard to give that up, man. And most players, me included, I would have played easily 2 or maybe 3 more years because I had it in me, but I had an injury. So most of the guys quit because of some debilitating injury, and they would have kept playing. I don't think LeBron, and this is the last part I'm going to make on this show all because I feel very sensitive about this. It's not the games. The games are only 48 minutes. It's the daggone practices when you get older. 3 hours, 2 hours, 3 times a week. It ain't the game. The games are quick. That's the easy part when you get older. And most players, and I'm telling you, and Ron said something about that, by the way, in another interview about the practices and all that he put in to keep his body up, be able to play. It is hard, man. It is hard.
And I think when you add in all the playoff games, over nearly 300 playoff games in his career,
and traveling through the air, just traveling back and forth through the air,
makes a difference.
But Bobby wasn't talking about the games; he was talking about practice, not a game, not the
practice.
Game.
We talking about practice.
All right, guys, let's go to the East Coast. The Miami Heat are up 3-1 against the Boston Celtics. They had a chance to sweep the Celtics, didn't. Celtics found a way. What are the Heat doing? And I'll start with you, Larry. What are the Heat doing to keep Boston at bay? Is it Boston hurting Boston, or is it the Heat just outsmarting Boston and playing a tougher brand of basketball? What do you think?
So it's a couple of things. One thing, I'll go back, and I don't know if I said it in this forum, but I thought the Celtics were kind of ahead of schedule last year. And when they played Golden State, it looked like a more experienced team beat them, even though they might have been their equals or superior athletically. Same thing has kind of happened when they're playing the Heat. The big difference I see with the Heat as opposed to the Sixers, Boston has a very good defense. And the Sixers, what they were doing, they were holding the ball late in the shot clock, giving it to Embiid or Harden, and they were jumping them. The Heat is moving the ball around. Boston is playing defense, but they even have time enough. They're getting in their offense early enough where they can make that extra pass, and they're getting open shots, and they're hitting those shots. And their ball movement is incredible. And I think they just are a little better team than Boston. They probably thought they should have beat them last year. So I'll leave it at that.
Chuck, you have a follow-up to that.
So, you hear this phrase all the time about the NBA, maybe even college, that, it's a miss or make league. And Miami, they are very well coached. They're very good. I get all of that. But when Struss and Martin and Larry and Vincent are hitting shots, what are you going to do? I don't know. I didn't expect. I'm just surprised at how well they've shot the ball or how well they've played and big shots and so forth. And the other night, they didn't, and Boston did. And so now we have to find out if that's going to continue or not.
Bobby, let me ask you, can Boston get another win and maybe another win on top of that and bring this thing to a 3-3 series and with Boston at home to maybe finally win it all?
And the answer is yes, because basketball is a game of chance. It's anybody's game, can turn. But Dave, I'd like to go back to what you say. What is it about Miami and Boston? Let me tell you, you can pick several things, but let me tell you what it really is with the Heat. And we talked about this some months ago. It's attitude. The Heat, and it's the whole culture with Pat Riley, Zoe, and it's the culture, man. They play hard.
They do. Day
in and day out. But what happened the other day was they had bought the bottles of champagne. You know what I mean? So it puts you in a different mindset. And they were so distracted, man, with getting ready to sweep them. And you saw how Boston came out. They came out fired up because they're like, we ain't going to go down like this. And it's just, to me, it goes back to my point of you could tell the difference in attitude. And I was shocked. And I wasn't shocked in Miami because it's only human nature, man. You on the brink, got these guys 3-0, and they got, they may storm up the band, the fat lady get ready to sing. It just changes your whole perception, and they came out harder. But watch this game. They're going to jump into Boston's crack. Even in Boston, you're going to see the real Miami.
Well, let me ask you guys this. The Stars, supposed superstar, Boston has two of them allegedly, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Those are two all-pro players who are set to make big money, top of the pay scale money. But they haven't delivered like they're supposed to. And the guy who has delivered is on the other team, Jimmy Butler. Is Jimmy Butler just a better player than those two guys? Is it that simple? Or are those guys not focused, lack of a strong head coach? What's going on? And let me start with you, Bobby.
So I know y'all have heard this term before. The difference between the real good, great players and the ones who are just good players, it's this two-letter word. They have the it. And Butler has the it factor. Those other two guys, they don't. And when I say it, it's that fire, like Jordan, like Kobe, like, Kareem. And I just don't feel they have that it factor, that killer. And LeBron, and LeBron used to wasn't like that too. Remember when he first came out? Because remember, LeBron always thought he was Magic. He followed Magic, and he was passing. They had to tell him, "No, dude, you're on a different level. You got to step up and start taking the last shot." So he got it. He got it. He didn't have it in the beginning, believe it or not. But he has the it. I just don't think they have that it factor, that fire, that same desire, that killer instinct, man. That's my take.
Larry, your thoughts?
I think Miami's, back what I was saying earlier, their ball movement early in the shot clock on offense gets them open shots. I think that makes the Celtics players work on defense. And I think when you got to work hard on defense for 24 seconds, it will undoubtedly impact your offense. Now, they haven't shot well, and Miami plays good defense too. I'm not sure if Butler's just better than those guys. Butler really hasn't been, he's done his thing, but all of those guys are still getting 15 points. They get like 6 people that get 15 or more points, and they make all those guys work on defense. And I think it impacts your offense when you can't rest on defense.
But Butler also, they be playing off of Butler too, by the way, Larry. That attitude he has.
But the thing with Butler, like he tried to take over last night or the last game, and they shut him down last night, and they just had a million turnovers, uncharacteristic for that team. I mean, they had a million turnovers in the third quarter. Because remember, at halftime they were up by 6. I thought they were going to go ahead and run them out of there, but they had like a million turnovers in the third quarter, and
they
got
did too.
Behind.
They thought they were going to run them out too, Larry.
Let me just say this. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown have been disappointments in my eyes based on what is expected for all pro players. They are both all pro, first and second team, eligible for the top of the pay scale. Chuck, your thoughts, is it as simple as Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown not being superstars that they are supposed to be?
I honestly believe in this case, the coach is, I'm sorry, the coach is not that good. He wasn't supposed to be the head coach. They lost Nduka. Then he became, and during the regular season, that team is a pretty loaded team. And so during the regular season, they looked pretty good, even though they had some patches, they weren't so good. But at playoff time, you got to really know how to make adjustments and push the buttons. I don't think he's that guy. I really don't. Now, about those two, Tatum and Brown, they're not Butler when it comes to the playoffs. When it comes to the playoffs, of those 3 guys, I want Butler every time. Even though those 2 guys are really good.
You mentioned Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Celtics, who he wasn't supposed to be. He's been an assistant for a number of years. No man who didn't expect the job, has been thrust into it, can be expected to be
That's good.
Top shelf. He's not. Should the Celtics look elsewhere after this season, because they're going to lose this series? And I'll start with you, Chuck.
If they lose this series, I think they will, even though it was only his first year and they did have a good regular season and have gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals. But I think they will make a move if they lose this series. But again, I want to give a little credit to Miami. I mean, Duncan Robinson was buried on that bench for Miami. And there was a game 2 games ago, he comes off the bench and gets 15. I just don't think Miami's roster is better than Boston. I don't think that.
Well, then it comes down to who's the better coach, Eric Spoelstra or Joe Mazzulla? And Eric Spoelstra is obviously the better coach. Larry, your thoughts?
I think Eric Spoelstra is a better coach, but Chuck, look at your eyes. Those guys are better than Boston. They don't have the names, but they're whipping their butt. And I hold the players accountable. If these guys are supposed to be superstars, okay, you don't get blown up by 30 at the end of the third quarter. I mean, I can't put that on the coach. Even if the coach, I look at the coach making some bad moves. Like I think he probably in Philadelphia took too long to put Williams in there to counteract Embiid's size and all of that. But I mean, those were close games, and they won that series after being down 3-2. You know, people look at him a lot harsher now. I think that those guys just haven't played. I'm not sure what he can do.
So Larry, you think Boston? So you think Smart, Tatum, Brown, and let's just throw in Brogdon. You think those 4 guys aren't as good as any 4 guys Miami has And you name them.
think
I don't know.
Miami's team. I think Miami's team is better than them.
I agree with Larry. They just are better team.
That doesn't hold on. That doesn't address my point. My point is, I think Boston has a better roster. So when you guys say, "Well, I think Miami has a better team," I don't know what that means.
Let me put it this way.
We get into. Hold on, guys. We get into a discussion of who's the better team, who's the better. In the playoffs, you've got to deliver, and it seems like right now, the two superstars are not delivering. No matter whether they're technically better or not, they're not better in the playoffs. Bobby, let's go to you.
So the old saying is,
player,
talent that works hard beat talent that doesn't work hard. So I've seen teams that did not have better talent, and the better talent beat teams that had better talent. But let me tell you the little secret about NBA coaching. I had a good friend who was an NBA head coach, Mike Evans, and he coached Denver. Mm-hmm. So I asked Mike, I said, Mike, what is the difference, between, coaches, and like that time Phil Jackson was in. He said, Bob, let me tell you what the head coach job is in the NBA. You're more like a psychologist. You're getting your team prepared. And what I was talking about mentally, he said the X's and O's is left to the assistant coaches. Like, perfect example, Chicago, Tex Winters and my coach, John Bach. John Bach did the defense. Tex Winter had the offense. What did Phil do with Rodman and all of them? He got them prepared. Mazzulla, that's the thing with him. I don't know, like you said, I don't know if he has that temperament to prepare those guys for the mindset, because that's the level, when you talk about professional level, it goes back again, you all, to mindset. I know it's all about talent, but when you're in the NBA, trust me, most everybody, I'm talking about to the 12th man, people don't believe this, got talent. Okay, no matter what you
let me take that another step. What I saw in Joe Mazzulla the other night, when he was apologizing for his coaching, he just seemed weak to me. Mm-hmm. And I think players pick up on that. Yeah. They don't have the leadership. They can't believe in the coach, even though he's been an assistant coach and knows them for several years. In that role, he looks small. He looks unprepared. And he wasn't prepared. Let's be real about that. He wasn't prepared to be the head coach. He expected that he would be the assistant coach again, and he wasn't.
Hey, David, do you give him any credit, and Chuck and Larry?
Well, I give him credit for being a head coach, but I don't give him credit for being a winner. He's not ready for that role yet.
But you do give him. They did go to the Eastern Conference,
right? They beat Philadelphia. I mean, that were no small task. But I'm not as, regardless of him, the players are getting outplayed, and it's not because of the coach. They're just flat out outplaying them guys. It's that simple.
No, they got enough talent they could beat them, and they proved it, Larry. It proved it. They beat them. They got enough talent.
No, I didn't think they would necessarily sweep Boston. I thought this, and we can look at the old tape. I said last week this is going to be a tough series. Now I wouldn't be surprised if Boston wins another game.
It's over. It ain't no tough series. It's over.
Well, I don't know. Listen. Jay Wright, what he was doing at Villanova, what Coach Knight did at IU. It wasn't that they had the best players or what have you. Now, they did have talent, don't get me wrong. But they know what they're doing, man. They know what they're doing. And Coach Spo knows what he's doing. Yes. But I don't think Coach Spo's roster is better than Boston's roster.
And you're probably right about that, Chuck. But that's not the point. So
anybody on Boston's team, have they demonstrated that they can shoot as well as Vincent and Martin?
No.
Not in this series so far.
Well, first of all,
that's not breaking news, Captain Obvious.
First of all, guys,
I mean, that's what I say. I'm looking at it's obvious to me that they're better than them guys.
First of all, let me just say this, and to add to your point, Larry, Boston is an inconsistent shooting team. They're not consistently great shooters, and that can trouble you in a miss or make league, as Larry, that Chuck was talking about earlier.
It wasn't a revelation that a lot of those guys on Miami's team wasn't even drafted. Okay, it wasn't just that they didn't end up being drafted. Okay,
that's more an impression of the GMs their lack of ability to select people.
But
Just
I
like
have
when
one
somebody's a
counter to
bust.
that.
It's not the player's fault. It's the
I
GM's
have
fault.
one counter to that, Larry.
All right.
Stop that daggone foolishness. That damn talking about the GM, man. That
No,
boy didn't get drafted because they wouldn't seem to be good enough.
The GM, I mean, sometime I wonder, I mean, 'cause look how many people they'll get drafted high and we'll say they're a bust. It ain't the player's fault. People have misjudged them. And that's the same thing with these guys. And, you know, they're missing 2 rotational players too.
And they still, I know. So that's my point. My point is, and yet, Duncan Robinson and Martin and Strus and Vincent are hitting shots like you will not believe at critical times.
Let me remind you of something. Let me remind you of something that you guys might have forgotten about. Last year, we all know that Jimmy Butler missed that shot, right? But they took a 3-point shot away from Strus on the sideline where they said his foot was on the sideline, and it looked like his foot was elevated. And I got to think that, you know, if that goes in, Boston might not even win last year. I got to think that's stuck in Miami's mind all year.
Come on, Larry. But Larry, let me ask you this: who would you take, Grant Williams or Spruce?
Well, I don't know about that.
This is going to tell a lot about your game.
I'll take Strus.
All I know is Grant Williams looks like a fool. He talked too much.
He plays hard, though. He plays hard.
He had some big shots the other day.
Well, whatever. Let me ask you guys this, and we'll conclude our NBA discussion.
David, before you do that, though, David, because you
go ahead, make it quick.
Because you were going down this path, and I thought you were going to mention it, and that is, so if you're Boston, you pay $600 million for those 2 guys.
Yeah,
that's going to be the question.
Because first of all, they're talented.
That's the market.
It's the market, and every team who has 2 great players would be paying the same amount of money. So to make a big deal out of 2 great players, 2 all-pro players, any team in the NBA who had 2 all-pro players would pay 2 all-pro players. That any team would do that.
I couldn't let either one of those guys walk.
You can't.
I couldn't let either one of them.
You can't.
All
right.
Me either.
It's going to be Miami. It's going to be Denver. And the way the NBA, and you guys know how I feel about this, the way the NBA has marketed itself through the years, the Denver Nuggets against the Miami Heat might not be a ratings bonanza for ABC/ESPN. Am I wrong about that?
I don't. What is? You always make that statement. And what is wrong with the way they market themselves?
First of all, the way I look at it, like, hold on, Larry, hold on. You asked me a question.
I didn't finish it because I'm making an assumption that you're comparing them to the NFL because they outdraw everybody else. So you're comparing them to the NFL.
No, I'm comparing the NBA to itself.
It's apples and pears. Apples and pears.
I'm comparing the NBA to itself because they have declined. But like all viewership has declined, but the NBA has declined a little bit more. And I think the NBA has got to start lifting up all of their franchises as opposed to always looking at Los Angeles or Boston or certain other franchises to do the work for them. Denver is the best team so far this year in the NBA. They've done it from beginning to end, but very few people are aware of the Denver Nuggets, and that's unfortunate.
You've answered my question. I don't think their marketing is necessarily any different, and I thought you was going to talk about the NFL because they do a good job of but they do the same thing. They do the exact same thing.
But the only thing I would say to you is the NBA Finals TV ratings could be impacted, probably will be. But if it was the Denver Broncos against the Miami Dolphins in the Super Bowl, there would be 120 million people watching.
So, and I think it's because the NFL is just more popular. Because when I watch the NFL, I don't see the Indianapolis Colts. I don't see the New York Jets. I might see them this year. I haven't seen the Boston Patriots without Tom Brady. I don't see the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't see
Detroit Lions.
I see the Dallas Cowboys as much as I see the Lakers.
But whoever plays in the playoffs, whoever gets to the Super Bowl, there is no rating decline whatsoever.
I think the sport is just more popular.
It's an
Controversial
event.
question about what's advertising. I don't know if their advertising is any worse than anything else. This football is just more popular.
That goes
And
without
basketball is
saying.
number 2, comparing with hockey or baseball.
Football, the NFL is also aided by the fact that they have a regular set of games. If the NFL was played on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be. But we can count on majority of the games being every Sunday, and for every week you build up to the next week. That helps the NBA, the NFL. It helps the NFL. All right, enough on the NFL.
Make a difference too, Dave. And you said this before. A lot of people don't realize when it comes to marketing, the markets in Denver is not a big market, and neither, believe it or not, Miami is not a major market, by the way.
By comparison, yeah.
By comparison, but go ahead.
But enough on the NBA. Let's go to somebody who was very important to the NFL. Few thoughts about the great Jim Brown, who I believe is the greatest football player to ever lace up his cleats, put on shoulder pads and a helmet to play in the NFL. Your thoughts on Jim Brown, Larry?
Oh, yeah, he's certainly a legend. My first football game my father took me to, Washington played the Cleveland Browns. And what it reminded me, I have an older brother that's 7 years older than me, and he would be out with me and my friends, and we'd be trying to tackle him and just could not tackle him. That's how Jim Brown looked, with pros. And, for his size, I mean, he was 232, and, that's a pretty big back by today's standards.
Mm-hmm.
Back then when the linemen were even smaller, it looked like they just couldn't tackle him. Not until he got 7 or 8 yards every time, it seemed like. Great player.
Great player. Chuck.
James Nathaniel Brown. Ever since his passing, I think that was Friday, I've just done more and more reading about him. And of course, we all knew who Jim Brown was, but I really didn't know. Like, we knew he was a lacrosse player. We knew he was a legendary football player, all that. But in high school, he earned 13 letters across all those sports. He played football, baseball, and basketball.
Wow.
Now, he averaged 38 points in high school basketball. By the way, for his first 3 years at Syracuse, he was on the basketball team and he averaged 13 points a game. Yep. The only reason he quit his senior year is because they had a rule at Syracuse that only 2 black players could start. Right. And they brought Jim off the bench, and he said, enough of that. I'm not going to do it. The athleticism of this guy is more, and it's just off the chart. I never realized he never missed a game. He never missed a game in pro football.
That's why I honestly believe he's the greatest football player ever. Let me finish with you.
Hey, wait, one last point, real quick. So at 29, he was in great shape. He was unbelievable. And they said that maybe he could have been a great boxer. Well, Bob Arum got wind of this, and Jim said, I want to get in the ring with Muhammad Ali.
Right.
So in 1966, they told Ali that. Ali was training in London and said, I tell you what, tell Jim to come over to London. Come on over here to London. He can get in the ring with me. Anyway, he goes over to London, and he was in the ring with him for 2 minutes. He said he threw 4 or 5 punches. None of them landed. And then Ali hit him with a left and a right. And Jim said, get me out of here. Get me out of this ring.
Well, that's one sport he was not going to be the greatest
GOAT really of all time which is obviously Muhammad Ali. But
Bobby, let's wrap this up with you on Jim Brown.
So, David, I disagree with you. He is not the greatest football player of all time. He is the greatest athlete of all time.
Okay.
I mean, like what Chuck said, all of that. I mean, and what he did in lacrosse was phenomenal. All-American 3 years.
He's still considered the greatest lacrosse player.
And then let's go back to what I was saying about players knowing when to hang up their shoes. He was at his peak, and he checked out. And then the civil rights, just the position he took on civil rights alone. And this is a small one, but where in the world in the 70s you see a black man in the bed with the most popular actress Raquel Welch, phenomenal. That's all I say. I think he's the greatest athlete as far as athlete. One last story, Chuck. So Fred Williamson, right? They like, because they would tackle him, man, and he'll get up, weak and stuff, all like he injured, and then run over the next play. So he said they were planning to get him, right? And they said when he came down the sideline, they were going to light him up even from the sideline. And they have this picture while he's narrating this. And Fred Williams said he came, and you remember Fred Williams known for the clothesline, right? The hammer, but he was known for that clothesline, right? He said he went to do that, and Jim Brown just punched him up in his ribs, broke 3 of his ribs. They tried to tackle him. He went down the side. He's a great, phenomenal man. I mean, just greatest athlete, I think, of all time.
I think that's very appropriate. Gentlemen, we got any closing comments tonight?
I'll start. We don't need another hero. Oh, my goodness. My girl Tina Turner passed today, So I'm gonna say,
man. What's love got to do with it?
Melancholy farewell to her. And CNN has done tributes to her, like for hours, that crazy guy down in Florida announced his candidacy. It's like on the back burner. They've had over and over again with Tina Turner, giving her all the just praise she deserved. She broke out of the mold, kind of like I guess Whitney Houston got credit for not being a traditional singer, so to speak. Tina Turner was before her, going on her own path. It was the queen of rock. That's essentially what she was.
Absolutely. One thing to add to your comments about Tina Turner and coverage. All 3 network newscasts led with Tina Turner tonight. All 3, CBS, NBC, ABC, all 3 of them led with Tina Turner.
CNN talked about her for almost an hour.
Well deserved.
And I'm so glad it superseded DeSantis, but I'm not getting into politics. Dave, my closing comments, man. With this, first of all, the young players. And I'm just going to talk right now about the NBA, but it goes with all young professional players, right? Like John Morant, for doing these crazy things. But I have this issue, David, Chuck, and Larry, that these young players feel they got to say something when anybody says something about them, like on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram. Shut up. And I know the girl said, just play the game. I ain't trying to do like that, but sometimes they feel they got to. Kevin Durant, somebody say something, he comes back. They feel they got to say something. No, you don't have to say anything. Just shut up and play ball. Now, I'm not coming like the girl who was trying to be racist with it, but sometimes just shut up. You don't have to respond to everything somebody said about you. And that seems to be the culture now. And it takes them down this hole that the media loves. So I just hope that some of these young guys wise up, and the older people just tell them, just shut your mouth. Sometimes you don't have to respond to everything that somebody say to you.
All righty. Good thoughts. Chuck.
I don't have a closing comment tonight, David.
All right. I certainly do. This is a big weekend here in Indianapolis coming up. Oh. I will attend my 50th or 51st Indy 500. It's the greatest spectacle in racing, the largest crowd in the world for a sporting event.
Yes. How many is about 500,000, David?
300. It'll be a minimum of 325,000 fans. A minimum. A sellout is 350,000, but they probably won't make 350, but 325. It was something that my parents started, me and my sisters going to. I went to my first race at 10 years old. It's my absolute favorite sporting event. Nothing's going to top it. I'm looking forward to it once again.
Hey, David, right quick about the Indianapolis. Am I right? Because I've never been to one. But don't they allow cigarette smoking and drinking and all those fumes from the cars? It's amazing. And then, do you watch the? I've never been, and I want to know, how do you watch Indianapolis? Is it like this?
Sometimes. You know what? On that note, our resident comedian.
One last comment. You know why there are not more black racing car drivers in Indianapolis?
Why?
That is a true statement. They always get stopped for speeding.
Okay. We close the show with that. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Bobby, good to see you. Earl couldn't be with us tonight. He had another activity to take care of. He's got an important life. He's a salsa king. Chuck, Larry, Bobby, thank you so much.
Good job, David. Very good job.